When you're at that point, though, then you're only talking a few months before something's finalized.
And it depends on, when fiscal years start and when we budgeted the money, but, typically you've got the project design, you know what the cost estimate is, you're working through acquisition of property, you know when you're going to start the job from a fiscal budgeting perspective, when you're going to have the money available and all that. So we'll know more as we work through those next steps.
So first step is spring, you get your funding, and you can start the serious doing your sampling and things. Was that like a 6-month process, or?
Yeah. When Jeff says spring is the start of a stormwater revenue for everything in the district. Don't think of it as for here. And quite honestly, the stream is not that large at the beginning of the collection, and you have to accumulate funds. But irregardless of whether that goes on or not, there's a little bit more preliminary stuff we can do. And we were talking about possibly appraisals. We might do a little more walking of the stream. We probably will get some soil samples within the
is that before the springtime, or is that?
Yeah, that's quite possible. We might even. It's possible we'll do that this winter. It just depends on where some of those types of resources we have, what else they're doing, if we can line them up, if we can schedule them. It's basic information we receive. Now, it might happen now, it might happen in May. And it really doesn't matter to the schedule when we do it, just as long as we sometime gather the information. And those kind of very basic dollars are available now, even under our current funding. So those activities, but it kind of stops right there. Then it's going to require more dollars before we do anything else other than just kind of that data gathering. So,
and then when you get to the design phase, how long is that like another 6 months or a year? Or?
It would. I don't suspect that the design phase here would take a long time. There's a lot of things having to do with, how will be required to procure the services of an engineer to do the design.
Oh, okay. So
there's other things, procurement procedures that go into it.
Okay.
Once you start it, 6 months probably isn't a bad number for here.
Okay.
That's probably how long it would take to design a project like that.
Okay.
But
so to final approval could be 6 to 9 months after you start. I mean, just as a general, or as you get approval at.
Well, yeah. Let's assume I'm not talking about this job. But,
yeah.
But if we were in a channel, traditionally it will take us as long as 3 to 6 months to acquire the services of an engineer.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It'll take us 6 to 12 months to have the design completely done, as well as know the parameters for any kind of easements or purchases. When we do that, then being a public entity, we have a procurement period and certain activities we have to do to contract. That can be a 3, 4, 5 month phase. I mean, it takes a while to get through all the steps.
Some of that's linear and some of it can go sort of concurrent. I mean, if you know you got the money coming, that acquisition of a consultant
can start
be able to learn before you actually have dollars, not spending.
That's real helpful. I'm just kind of curious how that process works.
But obviously you can't
predict.
You can't build anything until you have a design and
and the money.
A typical project for us, when we say we're ready to design it, it'll be ready to construct 2 years later.
Okay.
That's kind of the typical project, and most of that's driven by simply the procurement mechanics.
Sure, that's just kind of what you've seen in the past. Okay.
Yeah, and one thing I think is important to keep in mind here too, the stormwater rate is meant to provide a base level of service throughout our service area.
That's for
where
everybody.
we've always thrived. So we still have to be able to deliver on that and live up to our commitment in that respect, and then work towards your issue and other issues that are out there as well. So that there's, it's just, you just don't go after these issues singularly. There's a whole program that we're implementing.
Okay. And then once construction starts, is that a 6-month project? Or?
Well, it's going to be a timing issue. With jobs like these, probably the bank stabilization will be some kind of biostabilization. Usually the material that you would plant on the side of that has to be dormant, so usually it's a late fall activity. So you don't want to do... You plant dormant...
So you guys would have to so they tear down the houses,
yes.
And then come back.
So you don't want to go through here and shape this in the spring, knowing you can't plant anything until November because you have erosion and stuff. So you do have to kind of match up with the seasons when you do a project like this. I would say if we ever got to the point of doing that, though, the obvious first thing is purchase of the homes and then possibly demolition of the homes. And so the balance of that kind of becomes doing it when it can.
Yeah, gotcha.
So if we ever got to that point, the homes wouldn't be there anymore that were part of the issue. So. So part of the risk goes away way before the project's actually constructed, once we get started.
And what if you hit the road?
Well,
What's that with the project?
If the design is like, we gotta cut into the road there.
Right now, it doesn't look like
Doesn't look like it.
We've looked at that far to see what's
Okay,
there, so.
okay.
That would be a doozy.
Okay, so road, you start
It's a big
talking
pot, heavily, and that's not going to be an issue.
well, I think
up or down.
the reason we don't think we get to the road is because we do improve it.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
left to itself,
Probably
we don't know whether the creek would keep chewing till,
Yeah.
you know, other homes are gone and we're going through the
You don't know,
road
you
too.
could stop here.
Well, yeah,
There
sure,
is a
this may
chance.
be it, yeah.
No, I'm just
No,
saying, you
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
It could go 5 more feet. It may want to, if we leave it to its devices, may really love to go 80 more feet. I mean, you don't know what it's going to do.
Or
You're
go
kinda
back in
watching.
the direction.
You're still, you guys, you know, the whole area is still within just that, remember the big aerial view of the entire creek. You can see this big, large swath of property that the creek's been using for years and years and years, and we're still well within probably where this creek has been over the last 400 years, so.
Is there anything underground that you would need to be concerned with besides the normal utilities that you're aware of?
No, there shouldn't be anything here. You know, it's the typical thing that causes problems like this. You've got, obviously the creek goes down to bedrock, and then that bedrock soil interface is what makes these creeks really susceptible to this kind of movement, kind of continuous soils going down.
Yeah, I think
As far as
basically,
utilities, you may have basic utilities going down the street.
But
Those
we don't have like
relocation processes.
a
or
main
something
gas
like
line between here and Texas.
We
Oh.
relocate
Oh.
the, well, we don't, you don't have that, but we don't.
that.
We don't,
If you're
We
aware
think we know where most of those are.
if you're aware of something, please mention it now.
But I think everything we've seen, we know where most of that is, and we're aware of those.
Okay.
And most of it's us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's say you got the
Good,
two lines, so.
because I think based on conversations we had with you, Ron, and Clay, being out in the creek, at least things like cable and phone that used to travel through there, they moved that long
Right.
ago.
Yeah.
Right.
They used to go through the creek area here.
The backyard, they had
Oh, the
to,
cable and
they,
phone.
Recall
they
the cable
reburied
running
it
down.
several
Yeah,
times,
it's
and
a
then
liner, yeah.
they finally
Yeah.
came, yeah.
Yeah, we have our
Got a permit from the
thing.
county to do that. It just surprises me that they were allowed to put the utilities back there.
Well, it was still in common ground back then, so.
Well, I
didn't
mean,
think
with
about
the,
it.
yeah, with the conditions that were placed upon the subdivision, it was just somewhat surprising. Either they were allowed to, or they thought that was a good idea. But if they did it, they did it, so.
And I grew up along Grabwhite Creek, and that's kind of a straight line creek, is where parts I played in when I was a kid. Now, is that a creek done wrong, or is that I mean, it has a lot of the stabilization on the banks and things with concrete and gabions and stuff. Is that?
I don't know if it's done wrong, it's done the way it was done.
It was just-
Wouldn't be done that way today.
No.
Yeah.
A lot of things wouldn't be done today. The concrete channels you see
Yeah.
in some areas of St. Louis, we don't build those anymore. We do biostabilization with plantings. And of course, that takes more land. You go back and biostabilize a creek, it cuts into the land.
It's more natural.
It takes more space.
And the reason we don't do that is because of the regulatory drivers around those issues now.
Okay.
You're just
Some-
not allowed to do
Some
that.
creeks are in rock and they don't move a lot.
Well, that's true, too, yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
I have a creek close to my home that's in rock and it doesn't do this. Oh, it does, it just takes a million years.
Yeah.
There you go, yeah.